All right, welcome back to another video from Father and Son Investing. We're going to talk about Nanox today. They had their quarterly report and earnings report yesterday. We're going to talk about the details. The market hasn't responded favorably to this company. Let's see if that's fair. What do I think is a good price for Nanox? And hey, did I buy some more? Well, we'll get to that. All right, in their official report that they released and have filed with the SEC, they went over some of the basics that they've had in the first quarter of 2021. They talked about receiving their FDA clearance for the single source Nanox Arc imaging. I noticed that is now called the Nanox Cart, the Nanox Cart X-ray system. It's the single source. It's not anything that anybody is getting too excited about other than that they managed to push something through the FDA. It's the multi-source Arc that everyone is interested in, and what is the status of that? I'm a little disappointed with the status because we'll see that as we burrow down into this report, it states Nanox continues to expect submission of a 510(k) pre-market notification to the FDA with respect to the multi-source Nanox Arc and the Nanox Cloud during 2021. I think they should have been moving a little faster on this one. It should have been ready to submit as soon as they got the single source. So that's a little disappointing, and I think that is reflected in some of the stock price. They go on to talk about some of the delays that they've had because of the pandemic. I believe that this company is having some delays. I believe that all companies, or most companies, are having some delays due to a pandemic. But I also think that companies have to be able to adjust and adapt. They can't control the pandemic, but they can control what their business practices are, and particularly controlling the internal parts of this. That's why I think this 510(k) submission being delayed is a little disappointing. It's one thing if the FDA is delayed on reviewing it. It's another thing if they're delayed submitting it. Now, they said here, quote, while we have experienced delays compounded by the world pandemic in the production of our second generation high-powered tube by a third-party manufacturer, which caused us to revisit certain timelines associated with the shipment of multi-source units, we believe that the manufacture and shipment of at least 1,000 multi-source systems will be accomplished in 2022. So that's an update to their timeline. They're pushing things out into 2022. They did talk about the second generation high power tube by a third-party manufacturer. They have a third party manufacturing the tube for them. They also talked about their part of this manufacturing process, which is the chip. They said they commenced technology transfer to Nanox's wholly owned Korean subsidiary to enable production of the silicon MEMS chip that is integral to the Nanox digital X-ray source. The subsidiary is leveraging SK Telecom's expertise in semiconductors under the joint collaboration between the two companies in establishing permanent chip facility. The other update that they gave during this report, and that was actually released a few weeks ago, was the addition of Moshe Stengel as their chief business officer. Let's just take a quick look at what Mr. Stengel's work history looks like. He has a fairly lengthy history operating in the medical device space. He comes from Tuttenauer, which was a global manufacturer of sterilizers and infection control systems for medical institutions. He states, throughout my career, I have had the pleasure of participating in the launch and commercialization of revolutionary technologies that represent a significant technological leap forward in their field. That fits right with Nanox's mission here. The Nanox Arc, the company's novel digital X-ray source technology, is consistent with that theme. As far as his educational background, he has a BA in economics and business administration, and he achieved his MBA at Duke University. Let's just take a quick look at their balance sheet as far as cash on hand, cash equivalents. They're doing great, $219 million. Total assets, they're at $244 million. And when we look at their liabilities, they're not doing bad there either. Total liabilities, $19 million. So they have plenty of cash on hand to continue here without much in the way of liability. When we look down into their expenses for the quarter compared to last year, a little more expense went into research and development. A lot more went into general and administrative. They talked about what each of these breaks down into. As far as research and development, some of that was that they have more people working for them in that department now. As far as the general and administrative, it sounds like at least a decent portion of that has to do with stock-based compensation. When we hit their net loss, they're up about $5 million year over year for the quarter. And when we look at it in terms of diluted loss per share, they were at 27 cents, which missed analysts' expectation by 4 cents. They were expecting them to lose 23 cents per share. As far as what else is going on with Nanox that may be affecting their share price, Muddy Waters continues to try to beat them up. They had a big report come out last fall. There was a tweet that came out from Muddy Waters yesterday saying that their CEO, the CEO of Nanox, had executed a $44.5 million stock sale 5 weeks before announcing yesterday that shipments targets won't be met. Now, they have a document that they have a copy of that they say is from April 6th. When we look at this document, it certainly looks official enough. What we don't have, this is just the Form 144 that says that there is a proposed sale of stock. What we don't have is the form that would come when the sale of the shares is actually executed, and that would be a Form 4 that would be submitted to the SEC. Did this actually happen? It will remain to be seen in the next week or two, I guess. We see whether this form is filed with the SEC. So what if Mr. Polyakin did sell that many of his shares? What does that mean? Well, let's take a quick peek back at this Form 144. It says that there are almost 46 million outstanding shares for Nanox. How many of those are owned by Mr. Polyakin? This is from the Form 20F that was submitted to the SEC for the annual report. If we click here where it says major shareholders and related party transactions, we'll see that Mr. Polyakin owns roughly a little more than 4 million. Well, a little is relative. He owns 4.131 million shares and some change, which is a little less than 9% of the total company. So of these 4 million shares that he owns, the source of the proposed shares that he wants to sell are his founder shares. That is 3.5 million roughly. So he wants to sell about 1 million of his little more than 4 million shares. So he's selling off about 25% of his shares if this turns out to be true. I don't think it says that he necessarily doesn't believe in his company. He's still hanging on to more than 3 million shares. I personally think sometimes we jump to some conclusions about insiders selling shares, meaning they think that the business is about to turn down. Certainly that does happen frequently. I think sometimes, though, insiders just want to sell their shares. This accumulated wealth isn't actually wealth until the shares are actually sold. And having all of your eggs in one basket is not necessarily a fantastic thing. I have money invested in the company that I work for. I got a great report back the other day saying that it had gone up significantly, and that was fantastic. But I don't invest all of my money in the company that I work for. I think it's good to know when insiders are selling. I don't know for sure that he actually sold these shares because we don't have the follow-up form for this. But even if he did sell, I'm still okay with that. Here's one of the reasons I'm still okay with that is the price of Nanox stock today. We're hovering in definitely the low 20s. It hit a low of around $20 today. It's been up to about 24 on the day as well. Let's answer the question, did I buy some more? Yes, I bought some more today. Great price for Nanox stock. Now, in my last video, I had said that after their FDA clearance, I thought that the price would go up. It didn't go up as high as I thought it might. It hit in the 60s to 70s, which is where I thought it would go immediately. I thought it could potentially get up into the 90s. But then in that video, I stated reality will set in and investors are going to realize that this company is not making any revenue. Having a huge share price on a company that's not making any revenue is difficult for investors. That share price has come down. I did not honestly think it would come down into the 20s. I thought it would hit and sort of stay in the 40s to 50s, which is where it was before their FDA clearance. So I'm fantastic with the price in the 20s because it's a great time to purchase some more. Just finish up with two things. Let's talk about what the outlook is for this company, their revised outlook, and let's talk about what the analysts are saying about the stock. So as far as the future goes, originally the goal was to get 1,000 Nanox ARC units out by the first quarter of 2022. Now it thinks that they hopefully can get 1,000 of them out during 2022. So for the whole year, not just by the first quarter. And possibly more, they say. Of course, that still depends on FDA clearance for that multi-source Nanox ARC, and we learned from this meeting that they haven't even submitted the 510K clearance request. If it takes as long as the last one did, we're looking at maybe January 1st or even later before they even receive the clearance for that device. Now, they are ramping up from what I have seen in terms of already starting to manufacture them, but I'm iffy on whether they can even meet this this goal of 1,000 by the end of 2022. They also state that their goal is to get 15,000 Nanox ARC units out by the end of 2024. That one certainly seems reasonable if they get this request done and FDA clearance by the end of the year or January of next year. What do the analysts have to say about this? Well, there aren't a ton of analysts who are following Nanox, but this comes from the Wall Street Journal, where they show the opinions of 4 analysts. Currently, they're saying 3 are saying buy, 1 is on record saying hold, and the consensus is that it is overweight. When we look at the price target, we've got a high of 56 and a low of 45 with a average of $51. So we're looking at a company that's right about $22.50 per share right now with a consensus price target in the low 50s. Seems like a great time to buy Nanox stock to me. That'll do it today for Nanox. One more plug to get the young people in your life investing. Great chance for them to dive in and learn. I read this article the other day that was saying that 50% of adults in the United States are not considered to be financially literate, and that's really sad. And so getting the young people in your life not to be one of those people when they grow up would be fantastic. If you like this video, please, leave a comment. If you didn't like it, please leave a comment. And we would love to have you as a subscriber. We really appreciate all of you who have subscribed and all of you who have been commenting and helping us to make this channel better. Until next time, enjoy your investing.